Good morning, everybody. This is Brian with Milltown Speed, and this is engine 348006. I'm going to do a quick test video on this today for our customer who's getting this one. Josh is the customer who's getting this and putting it in a, I think like a 55 Caddy or something. It looks like a really cool project. I'm super excited for him. And this is a sweet little 4.8 that should be ready to go to him very, very soon here. So what we've got here, this is a level 3 engine package that we offer, and that comes with the wiring harness, the PCM, the fuse block, exhaust manifolds, O2 sensors, pretty much everything that we can give you to help with your swap and still not break the bank. And just like all of our other engines, we kind of went through this a little bit and did some refreshing on some parts. It's kind of our standard process for engines that have more than, say 100,000 miles. This particular 4.8 has 140,000 miles, and I think it's out of a Tahoe, if I remember right. But so kind of a low mileage unit to start with, and we go through and inspect the bearings. In this case, the rod bearings were maybe on the marginal side. If it was like, say, for my work truck or something personal, I would probably leave them. But we went ahead and replaced those on this engine. In addition to that, we also replaced the timing chain, oil pump, lifters, and head gaskets. So it gets good quality head gaskets, and name brand, timing chain, oil pump, and that type of thing. So definitely not cheap parts. We put good stuff in these, and that's kind of our standard 4 big items that we hit anytime we're inside one of these doing our inspection. So in addition to those, we'll also replace the oil pan gasket, starter, O2 sensors, Serpentine Belt, spark plugs, that type of thing, and obviously like oil filter. So this thing is all ready to go, and it'll get a new oil pressure sensor as well. When we're done with our testing here, you can see our gauge plugged into the back for reading our oil pressure during our test. Goes right into the back there. It's hard to see right there. So we can get a good oil pressure number on our test stand. And we're going to go ahead and test this before we take it off the run stand and get it ready to go to its new home. So let's get this started here. So hopefully the glare isn't too bad. But we've got our coolant temp and our IAT, which is inlet air temperature, both at 77 degrees. It's morning time. It's still hot and humid here today, but this is going to be a cold start. Obviously, you can see the coolant temp is the same as the water temp. I always try and do a cold start whenever possible. You've got RPM here that we can watch, and then manifold vacuum that is MAP in KPA. And then obviously oil pressure is going to read a -15 just because we are not plugged in to the scanner with our oil pressure. So also be able to watch our O2 sensors do their thing. We can watch it go in a closed loop, that type of deal. Go ahead and hit our fuel pump, and let's crank this thing up. Super quiet. It's quiet when you can have a conversation right next to a running V8. And that's not a quiet muffler either. See, brand new starter. Take a look at oil pressure while it's still kind of, we're at 97 degrees on our coolant temp, warming up. 46, 48 PSI, somewhere right in there on our oil pressure. Very, very good. 34 kPa in the map. That's very standard for a stock truck cam on this guy. You can see our O2 sensors are already switching just because the tune is dead nuts on, even when it's in open loop. So that'll go to closed loop here about 133 degrees or so. It switches over and really starts tuning it in. See, everything's nice and dry. Nothing dripping on the floor. O2 sensors there that are included. This wiring harness has been set up for a 4L80E for the customer's request, which I think is a great option, especially in a heavy car. It just requires a little bit of rewiring on the transmission plugs, not a big deal, and then a little bit of tuning in the software to change from a 4L60 to a 4L80. The only other thing you really need to worry about is your flex plate. You do need to run a different flex plate. This still has a 4L60 flex plate on it. We may be swapping that over for him if he wants. We do have kits available. Accessories are nice and quiet. These level 3 packages come with alternator, water pump, power steering pump, sort of the standard, 3 accessories on the front, obviously with the tensioner and the idler pulleys that you need. You can add a AC compressor right down here if you want. We have brackets and pulleys for that. That rides on its own belt, so you don't even really need to change the belt out. It's super easy to install that. I've just found that on a lot of older applications for swap vehicles, that location for the AC compressor is not ideal when it comes to frame clearance, so generally we leave that off. Almost 130 degrees. And watch that open loop switch over to closed loop here pretty quick. See, about a 700 RPM idle. We can adjust that for you if you'd like. There we go, closed loop. 131 degrees actually. So basically what that is the computer's going to start using those O2 sensors as feedback to tune that engine in to get that air-fuel ratio just perfect. You can see those lines there look like something's going crazy. Those are just the O2 sensors switching between high and low, or lean and rich, around that stoichiometric 14.7 to 1 air-fuel ratio. That's exactly what you want to see on your O2s for narrowband anyway, which is what these engines come with. And we're within plus or minus 5% on those, which is very, very good. You can see 13.6, 13.7 volts on our alternator, so that's charging nicely. Degrees. No smoke, no fuss. It's just down to business. Awesome, 275, 300 horse engine that's going to get decent mileage, and I mean, depending on the application, obviously, right? But there's no reason why this can't be a daily driver type of engine. and then just with a few key parts, you can turn it into, you know, a wild beast, whatever you want it to be. That's why these things are so great. You can see this one has the return style fuel rail. So you've got your supply on the top that comes from your fuel pump and your fuel tank. You need at least 60 psi, and then your return is below that. What most people do on a carbureted application is they'll use their factory carbureted supply line that's already there as their return, because it doesn't have to be pressure rated for, you know, anything more than what a carburetor would need anyway. And then all you need to do is run a new supply line that is EFI capable. So, you know, that 60 psi rating on the supply makes it real easy. This has a fuel pressure regulator built into it, so it's a very easy system to adapt to older vehicles. About 42. So I don't want to make this video too terribly long, but there's really not much fuss or you know, anything really on this engine to talk about. It just goes. This thing works great. We do have our air inlet temp sensor plumbed in right here. So you don't have a mass airflow sensor to plumb into the intake tubing. It makes for a very easy install. And that is an off-the-shelf sensor, so for whatever reason, if that ever goes bad, you can get that at any auto parts store or junkyard. Excuse me. And 63 degrees. I think I'm going to call it there. This is going to take a really long time. It's going to be a super long video if we want to get it up to like 200 right now, just because it's still in the upper 70s for ambient. So I think I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. You can see our long-term fuel trims are still super low, about 4% on both sides. It's good to see that those sides are close. If you've got a large disparity between those two numbers, those long-term fuel trims, 3.9, 3.9, if it was like, you know, 18% and -2, you know there's an issue somewhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off here and get this thing ready to go to a new home.